Welcome back to MQ Sews. I'm Emma. For those of you who have just joined me recently, thank you. Welcome. I'm really glad that you're here. I live in Melbourne, Australia. I've been sewing for about 14 or 15 years, and I started out sewing and designing children's toys. Then I moved into designing handbags, and you can find many of my sewing patterns in my coffee shop, which will be linked in the description below. After pattern designing for 6 or 7 years, I got burnt out. At that time, I didn't know I had ADHD. If you don't know, burnout seems to be a thing that ADHD people suffer from quite often, so it makes sense now why that might have happened. So I took about 4 years then to do another university degree in nutrition. While I was working on my uni degree, I also started sewing my own clothes. I would call myself an advanced beginner in the sewing clothes area. I hope you like getting to know me a bit more as you continue watching my videos. My favourite colour is pink, my favourite number is 2, and if I had to pick between odds or evens, I'd pick evens. Okay, now that I've given you a little bit of insight into who I am, I think it's time we talked about what I finished sewing in May. The first item I finished in May was the Jenny crossbody bag, which is a pattern by Ellie and Mac. I am a brand rep for Ellie and Mac, so the link in the description below to this pattern will be an affiliate link, just so you know. I don't have my bag up here with me at the moment. It is downstairs with all my stuff in it because I use it. I even took it overseas to England with me recently, and it was my handbag for the whole trip. So I've just got a few pictures to share with you of the bag. I made my bag out of leather. I used leather that I had from the Bestie bag I made earlier in the year, and I chose to do this because I wanted to use the strap that I made for the Bestie bag for this bag as well. I also used a rainbow continuous zip for the external zips on this bag, so you'll see there's a front zip pocket and then there's the main zip compartment. Also, it's not in the pattern, but I've added in a rear zip pocket, so on the back of the bag, you won't see it in the photos because I don't have a photo of that, but on the back of the bag, a zip that will lie against your body as you're wearing it. When we were away, I often carried our passports in that pocket. In my Bestie bag, I used the blue aqua panda fabric that I have had in my stash since my bag making days, and I found a grey panda fabric that was the same print, so I decided to use that in this bag, seeing as they were both going to use the same strap. I was like, oh, that's kind of cute to coordinate the fabrics that way. I'll take a photo of the swatch I have in my book. I keep a journal of all the projects that I make, and I keep a swatch of the fabric on the pages. It just helps to remind me of what I've made and what fabrics I've used. Everything externally I used the leather for, and I actually found, even with my semi-industrial sewing machine, I found it really hard to sew up near the strap connectors, so sewing the strap connectors to the actual bag. So next time I would probably use either a different fabric or less folds in the leather to make it thinner, because yeah, my machine struggled with those bits, and I ended up not being happy with how they were secured, and I was worried that like the straps would come out of the bag, so I ended up riveting in the strap connectors into the bag. They're riveted into the back side of the bag to secure the strap connectors to ensure that they didn't pop out of the bag as I was using it. The only other thing I did was I added a metal Handmade label to the front of the bag. They're really the only changes I made. I'm really happy with it. It was perfect size to take overseas with me. I'll talk about my London trip in a future video, hopefully the next one. I'm really excited to share what I did in London, so look out for that video soon. Next, I worked on this Harmony blouse by Love Notions. I started working on this one at the end of April at the Australian Sewing Guild monthly meeting. I made it out of this blue and white striped fabric that I picked up at the op shop for I think $2 or $3. I only had a metre and 20 centimetres of this fabric, so not much at all. I really had to be careful how I cut it out, and you'll see that for one of the back panels I actually had to cut lines going in the opposite direction. I actually really like how that turned out, so that was great. I don't need to undo the button to get it over my head, but when I made it I wasn't sure. I ended up putting a press stud at the top of the keyhole, and I sewed a red button on the outside, so it looks like a button's there, but it's just a press stud, which is nice and easy. And on this one I used red bias binding to bind the neckline armholes and the hemline of the top as well. I just had to check my notes to check what size I made, but I made the XL. So my upper bust is quite narrow compared to the rest of me, so often I'll have to start with a much smaller size up top and then grade out to a much bigger size down the bottom. So graded out to an XL at the hips. I didn't have to do a full bust adjustment on this one because they have a full bust pattern piece, but I did have to add a little bit of width at the dart root, 1.5 centimeters. I think this one is a really good fit and I really like the shape of it. Next time I made it, I wouldn't bother sewing in a press stud. I'd just sew that buttonhole closed and sew a button on the outside. So that would be the only change that I would make to this one if I was to make it again. Would I make it again? Yes, I would make this one again. It was a fun sew and not too difficult. I also made the Rhapsody blouse by Love Notions this month. I used a remnant left over from my Latalo dress. I'll link that video down in the description. So I used the leftover fabric from that dress. I like this top. I don't like it as much as the Harmony blouse. I think it's because this one doesn't have as much shaping. I've put it on a few times and then taken it off again, so yeah, I'm not sure. I do that with the Latalo dress as well, so it could be the fabric. Maybe I'm not loving the fabric. I don't know. You tell me what you think. But I enjoyed sewing this one up. I enjoyed sewing the tie pieces. I was going to use a store-bought bias binding, but decided that it would look better if I used self-binding, so I made up the binding with the littlest bits of scrap fabric that I had left over. That was not really that fun. I have to be honest, I don't enjoy making bias binding. Yeah, I hate making bias binding. So I ended up making the extra large in this one, and I often will hold up a pattern piece and like check that it will fit across my bust, that the length looks like it'll be right, and I felt like it was going to be not wide enough across my bust, and the pattern doesn't have a dart in it, and I could have done a full bust adjustment and then it would have had a dart in it, and I didn't really want to do that. Also, I changed the depth of the v-neck on it as well. So because I was going to change the depth of the v-neck, I actually added in 1.5 inches onto the center front of the pattern piece, enough to fit across my bust. I guess that could have added to the shapelessness of the blouse. I might try the blouse again, doing a proper full bust adjustment, and see what I think of it. I lowered the neckline by 3/4 of an inch, and I graded out to the 2XL size at the hips. And I don't think that the 1.5 inches that I added at the center front made the top too wide at the hips, so that's a positive. It worked out, and I do like this top. Maybe I need to work out like a different bottom half to wear with it. I've only tried it on with a few different pairs of jeans. Maybe I need to try it with a skirt, or I don't know. I'd love to hear what you think will make me wear this top more. Well, at all at this point, because I haven't worn it yet. I have already worn the Harmony blouse twice, I think. I obviously really like that one. So that was that one. By this stage, I was starting to panic about my trip to London and the weather. The weather in England has been amazing. We were very lucky. It only rained one day that we were there, like all day raining, but we were there for 2.5, 3 weeks. So to have one day of rain, like I was just surprised. So it was such good weather. It wasn't sunny every day. There was a couple of days it was cooler and I needed like a jacket. But before we went, I was a bit panicked. I mean, it's cold in Melbourne now and I'm sitting here in a t-shirt. As I'm getting older, I feel warm quite a lot of the time. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? Because, you know, England's normally cold. I was prepared to take warm jackets and warm jumpers and long sleeve tops. And I was like, what am I going to pack? You know, like a lot of the tops that I've been wearing over summer are starting to look a bit tired and I need some new things to pack. So I went on a little bit of a frenzy. I made 2 of the next pattern, the Grab A Cuppa Cardigans by Emporium. I have made this one before. I didn't feel like taking that one, so I ended up making this one first in pink. I used fabric that I'd gotten at the April Australian Sewing Guild meeting from the swaps table. It's only a one-way stretch, so it only stretches one way, not both ways. And I paired it with a rib knit that I also got from someone at the Australian Sewing Guild last year. I made a size 14 and I graded out to a size 18 at the hips, and I graded from the waist down to the hips. I ended up having to use the skinnier ribbing fabric. I guess they're both ribbed fabric, but one is thicker ribs. Is that what you call it? And then one is a thinner rib. So I had to use that one for the cuffs and around the neckline because the other fabric wasn't stretchy enough. And I wore this one quite a bit in England. It was good. It isn't too warm. It was nice to have something a bit lighter to throw on. And then the next one I made with the same pattern was this one, which I made exactly the same sizes, exactly the same adjustments. I just used different fabrics and I added some pockets onto this one. I used a sweater knit. It's got a fleecy back, so it was nice and warm. It was a leftover fabric from a unwind sweater that I made last year. I just wanted to use up what I had. I just felt like clearing out some of my scraps. I used the sweater knit for the main body and I made pockets. It wasn't obviously stretchy enough to do the neckband and cuffs, so I used some cotton jersey scraps. If I was to make this one again, I would do the pockets differently. So this is how I added the pocket on to the current cardigan that I made. I just cut out a square of sweater knit and basted it on, and then I had a pocket after obviously hemming the top part of the pocket. But if I was to make it again, I would actually sew down the top part of the pocket and also cut a diagonal into the pocket so that you could more easily put your hands in, because I found it actually like quite awkward to put your hands like down into it. So that would be the only change I'll make, and I will be making this pattern again in the future because it's really comfy and I love it. After that, I made a Bestie Tea, which is another pattern by Emporium, and I did my high-low hemline, which I used the Crush on Me tee, which is another pattern by Emporium, to create that high-low hemline. I've talked about that in other videos. So for this one, I made a size 12 at the shoulders and graded out to an 18 at the hips. I used lots of scrap pieces of fabric to create this one. I ended up piecing a bunch of different fabrics together to create the back. I'm really happy with this one. This one's super comfortable to wear. I knew I was going to be wearing lots of leggings, tights, gym pants while I was traveling, so this one I made long enough to cover my butt. I also used the Crush on Me tee neckline and arm size so that I could have a cap sleeve. So the only part of the Bestie Tea that I used of that one was the bit around the stomach, I guess. It's a bit wider than the Crush on Me tee pattern, which is why I like to use that pattern. It's a bit more relaxed. Then I decided to use up some more scraps. This is a scrap from when I made a spellbound dress with the rest of it. I think I had like a meter left in one piece. So I did the same grading from the waist to the hips. So I did a size 12 with a size 18. I used the hemline from the Crush on Me tee, and I used the neckline from the Endless Summer tee, which is another Emporium pattern, and It's sleeveless and it's the arm size, and the body of the pattern is the Bestie Tea. And I just changed the neckline to be the Endless Summer Tee, which is slightly lower cut. And again, I made a third Bestie Tea, and this one I also used scraps for. I used 2 different scraps to create this tee. I decided that I was going to split it down the middle and do half of the top in one colour and half of the top in the other colour, and I was going to switch the sleeves so that they were going to be opposite sides. I was also going to do the neckband half and make that really interesting, and I got to cutting the neckband. I couldn't be bothered, and I just cut it in one colour. I'm pretty sure I used the Endless Summer neckline and the Crush on Me tee hemline again, but this time I put sleeves on it, and I did the same grading from a 12 to an 18. I really like this one. It's a bit different. And then we got to my first fail. So I'll share it with you because, you know, it's always fun to see people's failures. I wanted to make the Ellie and Mac Oversized Tee. Yeah, this one was a complete fail for me. I just don't like it. I'm sure it looks fine, but I just don't like it. I had like a remnant of this fabric and it wasn't quite enough to get the top out of, and I didn't really want to make a scrappy top again, so I ended up deciding to cut up the wrap skirt that I made with this fabric, the Peppermint Magazine wrap skirt. It's a free pattern or a pay what you want, and I never wore it. It's a pattern that's meant to be made with a woven fabric, and I used a knit, but yeah, I never wore it, so decided to cut it up and make the oversized tee. I made the boat neck version. I just didn't like it, so I'm going to use this one as a pajama top so it gets some wear. And then it came to my next failure. So I had a couple of failures this month. Yeah, I'll actually show you this one because I didn't bother taking photos of this one. When I found out it was going to be super sunny in England, I thought, oh, I don't want to take a cap. I'll make myself a bucket hat. So I did. And I hate it. It's like it's too big but too small at the same time. I don't know. I just really didn't like it, so I didn't take it with me. Yeah. And there's not much to say about that one. I didn't like it. And it's sitting in the naughty pile. I mean, it fits. I can put it on, but it's like the lining for the hat doesn't come out to the edges but does reach the top in the middle. So I don't know, I've probably done something wrong rushing it, but that one was a fail. That was a free closet core bucket hat. That one I don't think I'll ever wear. So yeah. And I used scrap fabric for that one too. Maybe it's the fabric that I used because I used a grey French terry and this is a muslin fabric, but I heavily interfaced it all so that it was basically like working with a woven fabric. I don't know, I just didn't like that one. And then we get to my half one. It's like half a fail, half good. And I liked it enough to share it, so it's already been shared on Instagram. But this one is another oversized tee by Ellie and Mac. I really wanted this one to work out. I decided to do one of their hacks they've got on their YouTube channel. I'll link the one that I used down below. So it's got ruching on the shoulder seams. You don't put the sleeves on, and I used the boat neck again, but because I hadn't liked the boat neck on the other one, I cut it even wider. Because I'd changed the neckline, I needed to measure the neckline, and by the time I got to that, like this is literally the night before our plane left. So I'd left it like till the last minute, and we were leaving at 8 o'clock in the morning, so I knew I wasn't going to get to do it in the morning. I just need to do the neckband and it's finished. So I just cut a bit of fabric, went, yep, that'll do, and I sewed it on, but it needed to be smaller to like bring it in a bit, right? So I did the high-low hem on that one as well. I turned to the side and I was like, you can see like all of my bra under my arm. The arm size were just too big, so I ended up putting in a modesty panel under both arms. I actually really like how I did that, and I would do that again if I was going to make it again. I think it's cute and different, but I didn't feel comfortable wearing it on the plane. I think it's a bit different, and so probably I just need to find some things that I can wear with it, and maybe it will be fine. I'm just not sure. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. I was tired, okay? I was very tired. Anyway, the pink fabric that I used for this one I got from the swap table at the last Australian Sewing Guild meeting in April as well. And the coordinating fabric, I found both on the swap table together. I decided they went quite well together, so I used them together. That was the last thing I made before we left for the UK. That was 11 items. I had a really good little frenzy, didn't I? So 11 items in 12 days. That's like an item a day. So I think I did a lot of sewing. Don't feel bad if you don't sew like I do sometimes. As I said, ADHD, I'm able to hyper focus. I spend a lot of my time sewing. When I'm not looking after my boys or driving them around places, I will often be in the sewing room. Well, I hope you enjoyed seeing what I made in May. I'm really looking forward to talking to you more about my trip to the UK in my hopefully next video, and also telling you what I have planned for these in a future video as well. So that's it from me. I hope you have a creative day, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Please just ignore that stuff. So not so, walking around. And that is stupid, so don't put that bit in. Logo, label, I don't know what you would call it. Probably label. Got none left now, so that's good and bad depending on how you look at it.